because that is what is going to change the consciousness of this planet through impacting one soul at a time.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is that you are tuning in to this episode. This is a new style of the podcast, specifically around solo episodes. And today, what's really on my heart to share with you is a reflection of the last couple of years in terms of what's been happening personally in business. And it comes around this myth around perfect timing. And so a little backstory for the last 2 years. On the outside, this probably would never make sense, but internally, there has been this feeling of feeling lost, feeling very inward, kind of like in a cocoon, in an incubator, just really getting quiet, really connecting back to myself. And a big support medicine over the last 2 years for me has been cacao, being in ceremony, being in dietas, and it has felt at times very frustrating, for lack of better words. And frustrating because you have this deep desire for impact, for your mission. And it's almost felt like I wasn't really sure or clear on what exactly that was. And so I think the last 2 years have just been a journey of exploration. The reason that's 2 years, why these last 2 years is, those that really know and have been following my journey for a long time know that for a period of time, I was running the studio press with a business partner. And I believe it was about 2 years ago that we decided to part ways. And that was just this moment of redefining how my business was going to look moving forward. And it's been a journey of exploration, as I said. And so the point and the interesting piece around all of this is there's just been a lot of slowness, a lot of connecting with myself, still doing some things, testing some things, experimenting, if you will, and also feeling like nothing was really landing. And that created just a lot of uncertainty. And, I know there was definitely moments for myself where I thought maybe I am just going to let this go. Maybe it's kind of taken its turn and I'm just going to let this idea of this agency and business fall, or just let it go and wrap up that chapter in my life. And yet that never happened. And I think for me, the last couple of years has simply just been around peeling back layers, coming back to understanding of what I'm really meant to do here. What's the mission? What's the calling? And, there's the frustrating part is having so many interests and being multidimensional and having these different passions and trying to figure out how they all come together as a business, as a mission. And that's been a really big challenge for me, especially as a manifesting generator. Yeah, it's been very challenging to have all these different interests and passions and just what is meant to be business, what is meant to be simply a modality that's part of my business and not necessarily the forefront and the focus. And recently I made this beautiful investment with someone to really come back to the foundation, who I am, my brand, my identity, and so much clarity came through in this like few hours that we spent together. And then, of course, the journey continues where you continue to gain more clarity, you continue to really ground, and you continue to find that focus. And the other day, I was reading through like old notes on my phone. I don't like to delete anything. And so I was revisiting notes from working with somebody else from 2019. 2019. And so this was post publishing my book and wanting to put my book out into the world, wanting to create a business coaching centered around my book. And within this time spent with that coach at the time, one of the things that was brought up and that they saw in me was the ability for me to help other creatives, soulpreneurs, speakers, coaches create a book, right? Like turn their wisdom into a book. Those that have this unique perspective, like a story to share. And coming back to those notes after the clarity that I've received now of this being my path forward and my focus, and realizing the depth that goes beyond putting our book out into the world. And it was this interesting moment for me to read back on these notes, to see it differently, to see myself differently, and to kind of laugh at myself. And I'm proud of myself for not going into like judgment, but it was a moment to really, I laughed. I remember going through these notes, reading and just laughing, and then sharing with my husband. It was just like, oh my God, everything has been in front of me. And I feel like I've been doing these like weird, crazy loops going all over the place, detours, if you want to call it. Like they didn't feel like detours at the time. While I was in the thick of it, it just felt like I'm going all over the place. But to read these notes, to read what I had written 5 years ago, and to be reading that here and now feels like, I don't want to say arrived, but arrived, because that's the only word that's really coming to mind, is that I feel like I've arrived back on and the detour really wasn't a detour. It was all meant to be, because along the way, I've got to experience some of the most profound experiences. One being, the co-author Collective Voices, the co-author series that myself and Tina created. That has been such a focal point for me. And if I didn't take this detour with Tina, I never wouldn't be here. I wouldn't experience what I've experienced. And it was also through this chapter with Tina that my spirituality deepened. And through deepening my spirituality, or simply getting curious about my spirituality, I was introduced to cacao. And this plant medicine has been such a profound medicine for me, for my own self exploration, but to be able to bring that as a modality into the work that I do with clients, it all had its purpose. And I remember so many times just simply feeling so frustrated because I felt like I was constantly behind on where I thought I should be, where I wanted to be. At some point, possibly the beginning of this year, or maybe last year, I remember having a conversation with dear soul sister Hannah, and she shared this something that was, I know she channeled through the Akashic records, but it became such a mantra for me to remind myself over the last couple of years that I am not behind. This aspect of the perfect timing, and just timing is such an illusion. And I hesitate on saying those words because part of me doesn't even feel like I fully understand what that even means. But the illusion that we have to be at a certain place at a certain time in our lives. And for me, my biggest thing was just like, I felt like I wanted to have it all figured out by 30, and I'm not sure why. um, it's still like, it still doesn't make sense. And sometimes we get so wrapped up on this time frame, and it creates so much rigidity and force and really icky feeling in our life. And we become more frustrated when we feel like we are behind, when we're so focused on has to be this way and it has to be at this time. What happens is you have these blinders on and you are completely missing everything else that is possible around you, that you're meant to pick up along the way. And as cliche as it sounds, it is trusting the timing of everything and just simply reminding yourself that you are not behind. This whole idea of time truly is an illusion. And I recently have just been revisiting these quotes by, I'm forgetting right now, I don't know if it's Paulo Coelho, or I believe it's Paulo Coelho, but just this whole idea around, we feel like we have to arrive somewhere. Feel like we have to arrive. And this life is not about arriving anywhere. It is not a destination. It's about unbecoming everything that has been piled on. Because since birth, beliefs, stories, narratives, thoughts have all been conditioning, expectations, they've all been piling on, piling on, piling on. And it's, I don't want to say impacting, but it's shaping your actions. So this journey, life, is about unbecoming all the things that we thought that don't serve us, and the way that we unbecome all these things that we aren't, and be able to remember and come back to our core, our true essence, is through what I believe is through creating. Because in the process of creating, you are turning, you are seeing pain, you are seeing the beauty in pain. Every time you create something, you are shifting your narrative. So the power in what I've realized very recently is this power in creative alchemy. As someone who is here with a mission, you are a creative, and B, you're an alchemist because you transform things. That is the whole point of telling our stories, writing books. We need more of this art out into the world. Forget about how old you are, it being perfect. If it feels very much aligned, then now is the right time. We're always waiting for this right time for things to align perfectly, and that is never going to be the case. You will always be waiting, always be procrastinating, always be in this self-doubt. And part of me has also been in that space for the last couple of years. I don't want to say necessarily procrastinating, but there was times where I felt this urge to put something out and I held back. And that only created self-doubt. And so it's being able to be honest about whether or not you're procrastinating, or whether or not something is actually not ready. I think that's very important for us to be able to make that distinction. Are you forcing something out too soon because you feel like you have to? Or is it actually something that's meant to wait a little bit longer? That you don't necessarily have all the pieces? Or is it something where you are procrastinating? Because only in that space is where more self-doubt is created. and more resistance builds. And the more that you are pushing yourself further and further and further away from yourself, you are disconnecting more and more from yourself, because you are not putting the things, you're not creating, you're not putting the things out into the world, you're not allowing yourself to be expressed through the art that you want to create. And so what I hope in this and this time and the intention that you and I can set together, because I am very much in the same space as you, this intention of not procrastinating any longer, not doubting ourselves any longer, becoming aware of what our resistance is and turning that resistance into something, alchemizing it, allowing ourselves to move past that resistance so that we can create, so that we can be fully expressed, so that we can experience fulfillment, so that we can experience the impact. We need this planet, this earth needs this, the frequency of the art that you are desiring to put out into the world. So the invitation for us is to not wait any longer, to let it be messy and imperfect, to let it be exactly as it is, to allow ourselves to really experience what it feels like, of the freedom to be fully expressed. That's the invitation that I invite you to create that intention around, especially going into this season of reflection on the year that we have had, and then to set these beautiful new intentions for the year to come. Let this be the intention that you set for you, for your mission. I love you and I'm here for you. If there is some form of resistance that you are feeling around putting your story out into the world, putting your words out into the world, your wisdom, simply creating, I am here for you. Send me a DM, whatever that looks like, whatever that feels like for you. I am here to help you move through that resistance. And ultimately, we need more creatives and artists putting their wisdom out into the world, because that is what is going to change the consciousness of this planet through impacting one soul at a time. Thank you for being here. I love you. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.